Strategies for change. We were asked to look what should be done differently for New South Wales, and we proposed 3 broad strategies that we think that the government could choose from. The first one was basically continue on the same path, and this was the sort of the option that we didn't think anyone could reasonably accept, if only on financial grounds. And other jurisdictions are facing this same issue. They are increasingly incarcerating children and young people. They are therefore having to build new facilities. These facilities are expensive to build and they are expensive to maintain. As I pointed out, or when it was pointed out to me that in New South Wales that it costs about $545 per day to keep a child or young person incarcerated, I suggested that we probably should just send them all off to King's and get them to sort them out, and I'm sure they'd do a really good job, and we'd have well-educated and effective members of society. This is an expensive game, very expensive game. For New South Wales, forgive me, I think it was $343 million over the next 6 years that we see that the Treasury will have to find for capital investment and also recurrent spending. This is based on increasing children and young people being held on remand, natural increases, particularly in the Indigenous population as they feed through, and also, perhaps most disturbingly, if you look at that pipeline of where children who get into trouble come from, a lot of them have come out of the DOC system. The numbers of children in that system is growing very substantially. If you extrapolate the historical average of kids that go from there and get into trouble, it's going to grow very substantially. I think this is a major cause for concern, not just in New South Wales, but I understand this is happening in most jurisdictions. Kids with these complex needs are very hard to look after and very expensive to look after. The second option, as was pointed out, and one of the people that we asked to review our report, was the soft option for government, and we've given them a relatively easy out. A lot of that focused around changes to precedents in legislation, which would reduce the number of children and young people being held on remand. That alone, I think, in a lot of jurisdictions will make a substantial difference. We would see that would not save New South Wales Government money, but would certainly reduce the amount that it would need to invest over the next 10-year period. The final option, and it was the one that we recommended because it's the one that addresses the root cause, and this is the concept of justice reinvestment. We believe that taking the money from the downstream and putting it into the upstream area will pay dividends and will help to address those underlying root causes. Our view is if we don't do that, we will just keep on keeping on, and we will keep on seeing young people, particularly Indigenous people, getting caught up and continuing the problems that we have. One of the most disturbing statistics that we saw is that 100% of Indigenous young people who get incarcerated in New South Wales go on to the corrections system. And it was interesting, I mentioned earlier that we spoke with a group of young people that had been caught up, and they were a really interesting group. There was a young fella there, I think he's just turned 17, lovely young Aboriginal boy. He was really respectful, he was doing really well in his post-release program, but when we were talking with him, I said to him, yeah, mate, it sounds as if you're getting in trouble when you get back to your town. He said, oh yeah. I said, you'll be 18 when you get back there, you'll go to jail. Doesn't that worry you? And his response was, no, my uncles and brothers are there, why would I worry? And again, while I say we don't, anecdotes are dangerous, to me that brought that statistic to life. The key thing with what we've said here is actually there's an increasing need for reform. It's reflected in the report. New South Wales in the late 90s was leading Australia in juvenile justice. Great legislation, well enacted. At the bureaucratic level, I don't mean that in a pejorative way, it was being very well administered and they were getting great results. I think to a certain extent the ball has been dropped. Some of that very strong oversight from different departments has lapsed to a certain extent, and changes to the bail laws and that type of thing have actually then means that they are getting much poorer outcomes than the infrastructure that they have in place will allow them. Certainly what's going on in the centres, and we went out to a couple of centres, seems to be is very good. There's great programs going on there, very dedicated staff, and yeah, so I think that there's good opportunity there for them to improve. Implementing these strategies requires not just whole of government, multi-agency approaches, because as we've said, and as was from the very early childhood type of interventions, which have got great evidence to say that they actually make a difference, all the way through to the coordination of services in the multi-systemic therapy type responses, bringing those together is critical. I touched on the whole of community effort. I think that NGOs can do a lot more, to be honest. Certainly in New South Wales, I don't think they're as cohesive as they should be. I don't think they're as robust in their response to government announcements and policy decisions. I don't think they exploit their boards well enough, who are well-connected, important people in society, and I think they can do more. They probably won't want to hear that, but I think that's, we all need to do as much as we can in this. And as I said, justice reinvestment, there is good evidence from the US. We need to be careful about taking what works over there here. Their situation is different, but it does make intuitive sense, and there is a lot of other second order evidence which supports that this can work. If we don't try something different, we'll still have the same problem. And that problem, as we've said, will continue to grow. The report's available. There's the website. I hope that it gets used. I think that the New South Wales Government has made a response. We're hopeful that they'll make a subsequent response, particularly around the strategic options and what they might choose to do there. Again, I must commend the government for commissioning this and actually making it public. They've been very open with it, and we've actually briefed both the Greens and the coalition in New South Wales on the report, and I think this is a very good sign, and hopefully this will be replicated elsewhere.